Okay, so what is your name?
Tracy Adams.
Hi, Tracy.
Hi.
So you and I have known each other for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And your son was one of my very first functional medicine patients ever. Are you comfortable talking about his story at all?
Oh, yeah.
So give me just kind of a little rundown before we get to you of kind of how we met and what Brooks was dealing with and kind of what we worked together at that point on.
So I actually found you on Facebook. I was scrolling and I saw something about brain, and I was a speech pathologist on a brain injury unit, and I'm a curious cat, and so I was like, oh. And I asked my neighbor, do you want to go to this event with me? And we met y'all.
Yeah.
And then I learned about your functional medicine practice, and I think Brooks had already been hospitalized. So it was November of 2018. He came home from school one day. He was jaundice, yellow, 14 years old, very abnormal. And we had an 8-night stay at, room service included at Wilson Children's Hospital. And when we were discharged, so the adult GI thankfully kind of knew what he was looking at and said, oh, it'll be fine. Like, he'll just be on high doses of steroids on and off for the rest of his life. And I'm thinking, there's nothing good about that. Like, what happened to, why did this happen?
Yeah.
And the pediatric GI, she didn't know what to do with him. Like, we went for the outpatient visit, and she was like, I don't really know why you're here. I need to call the other GI doctor. So, and I've been getting to know you, and I just felt called. And so I gave you the folder.
The folder. I love the folders.
It was like an inch thick. I mean,
Oh,
I
yeah.
had his medical history back from like very early on. And you were amazing. Like, you were a dog after bone figuring out what was wrong with him. He was healed.
It's amazing. And not having to be on steroids for the rest of his little 14-year-old existence.
No, I know. It was, yeah. I mean, we tried it for like a week because my mom's best friend pressured me into it. And, he's going through puberty and on high doses of steroids. And that was it was an ugly situation.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was working with you through that. I knew, like, you were going to get to the bottom of anything.
Yeah.
That's really what sold me, was you are a diagnostician to the core.
Thank you.
I think that's your strength.
That's what I like to do. It's like medical mystery solving.
Yes.
And it's not boring, and everybody's different. So it keeps me going.
Yeah.
For sure.
There's definitely no Harlequin romances in your bookcase. You are reading all the research all the time.
So after that, it's been a couple years, and Brooksy is thriving and in college, and you reached back out to work with me for yourself.
Yes.
What were kind of your main goals of personally starting to work with me, and why did you think that would be a good fit?
I don't even know what my goal was. Like,
Yeah.
I had put on a tremendous amount of weight. I mean, after COVID. So this was not, the COVID bulge. It was afterwards. I was a vampire. I wasn't sleeping at night. I would either fall asleep and then wake up from like 2 to 5, or I'd be up till 3. And I was just struggling that, and I kept putting on weight. I was trying all kinds of different supplements, and then my sister, I had reached my breaking point.
Yeah.
And so having a medical background, I always said, like, I was totally obsessed with medicine, but I fell in love with wellness, like the body healing itself. And I had become so out of touch when, with everything that we went through when we first moved here, and his illness and his diving. I feel like all of my awesome habits and even my beliefs, my knowledge, it just kind of washed out with the tide.
Yeah.
I lost it. And I felt lost, and I felt hopeless. And I decided, my sister was like, I'm taking hormones and I feel better.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay. So I went to my doctor, and they put me on hormones. And then I started listening to a book that I would typically listen to. And I started reconnecting with the things that I knew to be true, like environmental toxins and things that you needed to avoid, and how, what would you call hormone replacement therapy that's not natural? Like pharmaceutical hormones.
Yeah.
I knew, like, this is not right. This isn't going to be good for me. Not to mention, my appetite went up substantially. And I was like, okay, I don't know how that's going to help the waist situation. Because at that point I had put on 50 pounds. Yeah. And all my shoes were too tight. Even my sneakers, I had to loosen them so much when I would work out because my feet were so swollen. I don't know that I would say swollen because I'm not one to retain water as much. I know I had a lot of inflammation now. I didn't know that then.
Yeah.
But anyways, I stalked your page because I was like, oh my gosh, Rainey was born. And you posted about hormones. And I was like, oh, she does that? And I trust you.
Yeah. I
reached out. Now I will say, I had been watching a YouTube video one day and I saw the Dutch test. And I was I saw them going over the rules. I was like, that's amazing. I want that test.
Yeah.
And when I met with you, your gold standards were all of the things that I was like, this is how, in my opinion.
Yeah, sure.
My educated yet no, documentation behind it opinion.
Sure.
That I was like, okay, that's it. I'm going to meet with her and we're going to do this.
And so you came in, we reviewed all your history, we did our exam, we did a lot of blood work, and we found something kind of unexpected.
That was kind of a hot mess.
And I think that was a big turning point for my treatment with you, even before we got the Dutch test back. And that was your thyroid results. And we talked a lot about how most of the time nobody pulls a full thyroid panel on anybody, and they'll just pull TSH or whatever and tell you you're fine, right? Yep. And you had your thyroid checked a couple of times.
She said it was normal.
Yep. So when we did that, we started doing food sensitivity work, and then we did the Dutch hormone testing, and you're still in the middle of the program, so you're still early on into this journey, about 2 months in, I'd say. March
1st is when I eliminated I started the elimination, and that was pre-food sensitivity. But
so what has changed so far? What has the difference been even in these early stages for you?
So the first few weeks not having blood work back, I was just going on faith.
Yeah.
And I have faith in you, so that was easy. And I had a trip. I drove to New Jersey with my sister, and I packed a cooler. I remember one of the meals I made. By the way, the resources that you provide and the systems that you have in place compared to when you first started.
Big improvements.
It's just amazing. And Brooks was a teen, so I'm not really sure he ever would have logged like I do, but the resources have been amazing. So I'd cooked a bunch of stuff and made it, and I remember pulling one pot chicken in a bag out and sitting on it in the car to get it warm so I could eat it. Because we literally almost drove to New York City, you know what I mean? We're in the car forever. And I was like, I'd rather not eat it cold. Oh, I'll just sit on it for a little while.
That is so funny.
Yeah, but I was committed.
Yes.
And it was the week after we got back from the trip, and my phone just kept not recognizing. Well, I didn't think of it that way. I was just like, why is my Face ID not working? It kept asking for my password. And then I was like, it's been like this for 2 days. And so I took a picture of myself, and I was like, holy cow, my face has changed.
Yeah.
And I went back and I looked at the pictures of me in New Jersey and in New York City, because we went into the city for a day. And I remember being at Brooks's conference for diving. It was at the end of February, and I was trying to meet some of the parents that I'd never met before.
Yeah.
So, she's like, I'm sitting over here. And so I took a selfie of myself, and I didn't want to send it.
Yeah.
Because it didn't look like me.
Well, and I feel like that's such a misconception too, is as we go through these later stages in our life and hormonal changes, it's not vanity. This isn't who I am, and there is something going on, and there's no answer, and it's not just aging and suck it up.
Yes.
And that's so frustrating to just be told oh, just embrace it, or get over it, or you're just crazy. And
it's just your age.
It's just your age. It's normal. And I think so. That's a very powerful statement, I think, that you just made.
I was walking with my neighbor one day, and she was my workout partner, and I had to stop working out with her because we used to work out at 5:30 in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
And with my sleep disturbance, I couldn't, I can't do this anymore. I was tired of feeling guilty for letting her down. And so I was like, I love you. This doesn't have anything to do with you, but I feel like I need to let you do your thing and I'll do mine.
Yeah.
So we would go for walks and she's like, but we're also a lot older. And I'm like, that's a bunch of malarkey. Like,
yeah.
I, for 20 years, was up at the crack of dawn training for marathons and triathlons. And it's a part of who I am.
Yeah.
And it was gone.
Mm-hmm.
And then again, like I would look in the mirror and I literally didn't recognize myself. My face had changed. So it was so validating.
Yeah.
Like when I had to update my Face ID, and then I compared pictures of when I was on my trip to that day. I remember I was in the Costco parking lot, and I'm like, I look like myself again.
That's amazing.
And it wasn't about the butt or the thighs or the hips. Like I literally was like, I'm just happy to have my face back.
Yeah. Because that's who you are. That's how you face the world.
Yeah.
That's amazing. That's
Yeah.
so
I mean, people would show me a video or something. And I'm like, that's me. Not really. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I totally get it. So that was the first big, I think, hooray and like aha moment. And, that was, I think, identifying that there was some autoimmunity going on with your thyroid and how to actually address that naturally. And then we kind of progressed. We got your food sensitivity results back. We got your Dutch results back. And now we're going through a pretty significant detox, which I know is not easy. But how do you feel now, like moving forward deeper into the detox? Like what other changes have you experienced?
So many things. So one of my really big complaints when I first met with you was the sweating. I mean, it's going to sound really judgy, but I mean, I remember I would see women that just would be like sweating, like their whole head sweating. And I'd be like, how can they stand that?
Yeah.
And then once I started experiencing, I'm like, they can't stand it, but they don't know what to do.
Yeah.
And I'm not like that anymore. I mean, today when I was getting ready, I was running around, and I used to be like, I'm not putting my clothes on until the minute before I leave. I'm going to go get Tom to start the car and get the AC going even. And it wasn't like that. It was, I'm just going to get dressed. We're going to get in the car. And I was fine. So I'm no longer just sitting in my house, freezing everybody else out of my house because I'm dying. And so we have the AC set at 68 degrees. I actually even had my robe on last night because I was chilly.
Such a small thing, but that's so big.
It's huge. Sleeping, I am falling asleep at night. I'm sleeping through the night. I still have some nights that aren't great, but I'm going to admit that that's my habits.
Yeah.
Because there are some indulgences, I would say, like laying on the TV and watching a show and then being like, oh, I just want to watch one more episode.
Yeah. But that's normal. And I think that goes back to like the, finding a way to make all these changes a part of still like a livable lifestyle that can be permanent.
Yeah. And as some of the changes I made in the beginning become more natural, I can see myself stacking. Remember when I first met with Heather and we created my goals, I said consistency. Like one of my number one goals is just to be consistent. I'm not going to lie. I really was having a love-hate relationship with my electric toothbrush because it takes 2 freaking minutes.
Yeah.
And you can't do much while you're doing that.
Yeah.
And I'm a multitasker. And so, the gal that did my teeth, cleaned my teeth last, she's like, you really should use your electric toothbrush. So like day and night, morning and evening, I now use it full 2 minutes. I do my face routine. I wash my makeup off. I use my toner and I used to cut corners everywhere because I was like, why bother taking care of myself? Because it's not working.
Well, and I think that goes back to like, no matter if you have the knowledge of how to eat well or, supplements to take or all these things, having somebody to make that obtainable for you and coach you through that and hold your hand and be a friend and a partner along that journey is really important because as moms, no matter how old our children are, we're moms first. And as women, even if you're not a mother, we're caregivers by nature.
Absolutely.
And we tend to never prioritize ourselves. So sometimes I think being forced to have an appointment for an hour or a phone call every week where you're only talking about your health and your well-being, and an advocate that is pushing you to focus on that can be really powerful, even for somebody like yourself who has a lot of medical background, a lot of knowledge in this space, but didn't know how to make time for it.
Well, and additionally, so my sister lives in Gainesville. She drove over to the beach one day and I met her, and I brought a couple things of fruit to snack on. And I was thinking about this today. There's so much freedom in knowing that what you're doing is for you.
Yes.
So I had spent so much freaking money on supplements. I had tried so many things, intermittent fasting, all these things. And so it'd be like, I'd wake up and I'm starving. I'm like, I'm really hungry today. Oh, I can't eat till 11. And what has really come to front of mind for me is everything in moderation.
Yeah.
And there's peace in, like, pineapple. I love pineapple. That's like my dessert. To me, it's so sweet. I don't need ice cream. I can have pineapple. But I used to be like, no, I'm not going to eat pineapple because it's too high in sugar. It has a high glycemic index. I don't actually know if that's true or not on the glycemic part. But I assumed it was because it's so sweet. And I'm sitting on the beach with my sister that day, and I'm eating my pineapple, and I just, like, mid-conversation was like, can I just say how much at peace I am eating this pineapple? Because I know it's okay. And I used to put, this is bad, this is good, this is bad, this is good. And now I just eat real food. I try and make sure that I get the, fiber and the protein and the fats into each time I sit down. But I'm not like, this is a no. And I mean, obviously, if I was sensitive to it for low, I was going to remove it. But having an individualized plan, knowing that you looked at my numbers and said, this is what's going to be best for you, instead of, this is what everybody's doing and it's the be all end all.
Yeah. And have you been successful?
I have so much more energy. I'm waking up in the morning. 3 days last week, I woke up at 7:30 in the morning on my own. And for a long time, I mean, I'm talking like a year, I would get up by 8 and I would, like, not really feel like I had the oomph to do this. And I'm a mover and shaker. I'm a get it done kind of girl. Mm-hmm. But it wasn't until around 11 where I was like, okay, I need to get stuff done. I mean, I had nothing in the tank, like just nothing. And it's coming back. I don't know. I feel more like myself than I have in several years.
Well, and you look incredible, and you're telling about your shoes and your pants and all these little things that just are powerful, when you feel successful. And still, to me, it's all about fighting that diet culture. You're doing this without creating a negative relationship around mealtime and foods. That's so important for our mental health.
Yeah, I have done, you name it, sister. I mean, I've done keto, and I've done, portion control. I did Weight Watchers years ago. I mean, I've done a lot of different things, and this is by far the healthiest relationship that I've had with food. I log my food primarily because if I start to feel funky, I want you to be able to look and problem solve with me, troubleshoot. I don't count the calories.
Yep.
And actually, when I first started, this is something that was huge that changed. I don't know why, but I just didn't ever want to stop to eat. And so my calorie consumption was really unbelievably low. Like, there were days I might not have even had more than 1,200 calories, and I wasn't hungry, and I didn't want to eat anymore. So, like Heather had said, I'd really ideally like you eating 5 small meals a day. Well, I'm up to 3 meals and a snack. That's big time progress.
Yep.
And I know it's going to come.
Yep. But it's turning that metabolism back on, out of that fight or flight mode that you've been existing in.
Oh, let me talk to you about fight or flight. Because when I first started, I kept hearing you and Tommy and Heather talk about rest and digest. And I just, honestly, I've never watched a video on that. I've never seen anything on it.
Yeah.
And it's so true. So I started thinking about, like, the preparation of my food, and I don't remember if it was you or Tommy talking about, like, it gets the digestive enzymes in your mouth that is the first stage of digestion, and all the things, like, it's a cascade process. And there were so many times I would just stand at the island and eat and then keep on going.
Yeah.
And now I use it as time to spend with my birds, because if they could sit on me all day, they would. But unfortunately, I can't sit all day. So I'll get my breakfast and I'll sit with them and I'll relax and watch something, and like, it's so much better.
Yeah.
And I wasn't doing that at all. I mean, I was always eating on the run, always.
Yeah.
And I would imagine most people are.
They are, and that's what our society has trained us to do. So if you could share any words of encouragement to any woman going through this stage of life, or considering other options, or not knowing this is a possibility, what would you say is your biggest motivational go-to? Like, what could you say to this woman? What could you speak into them to know there's another way and that they can feel better?
Oh gosh, just to narrow it down. So I was looking at my heart rate information in the chronometer app.
Yes.
I always called it chronometer until I listened to one of their podcasts, but the chronometer, and I noticed like my nighttime heart rate has come down, all these things. Those are like true indicators of better health.
Yeah.
I mean, your heart, that's a pretty big thing to pay attention to. And I was so excited because I was like, this is all from food and plant-based supplements. Like, these are all natural. All natural doesn't always mean it's good. I mean, cocaine's all natural. I wouldn't recommend it. But but it's so exciting that there's no medicine involved. Like, my body is doing this. And so, like, invest in yourself. Give yourself the opportunity to find out what is going on inside of you. What are your hormones doing? What's your blood work look like? And then, work with some people that will really help empower you to find your groove again, or find your groove for the first time if you've never had it. I mean, I had a good groove at one point. Yeah. And it feels so good to have it again. And I will tell you, I was hopeless. I didn't believe that all these things would happen. I just knew, like, if I'm healthy on the inside, then maybe the rest will follow. But I know I want to be there for my kids. I want to be strong. I want to feel good. Yeah. I want to be able to do what I say I'm going to do and have the energy to do it.
I love that.
And now I can. And there's so much peace of mind knowing that the supplements I'm taking, the food I'm eating, you've put your knowledge and, all the tests that have been done and, plugged it into that. And there's no more, oh, I hope this works.
Yeah.
Because your body's amazing. Your body's strong. Your body has what it needs.
Well, it tells us.
If you give it what it needs.
If you give it what it needs, and it tells us when something's wrong, we just have to learn how to listen.
Yes.
And I totally believe in that. Yeah, I agree. Well, thank you. This is awesome.